This is Rising from the Shadows. What would your life look like if you stopped second guessing yourself, stopped playing small, and finally broke free from the cycles that have kept you stuck? Well, that's what the Ignite Momentum Practicum is all about. It's a 6-week transformational coaching experience designed to help you break through people-pleasing, self-doubt, and codependency once and for all. And here's the best part. You get to choose your path. You can matriculate through the one-on-one accelerator. It's private, high-touch coaching, you and me one-on-one. Weekly breakthrough calls, a custom action plan, deep mindset work, and real-time support to help you reclaim your power and rebuild your confidence. Option 2 is the group intensive. This is where transformation meets community. Weekly live sessions with a cohort of like-minded individuals, hot seat coaching, Q&A, bonus trainings, and a space where you're truly seen and supported without judgment. So whether you want personalized guidance or collective energy, the Ignite Momentum Practicum gives you the tools, structure, and support to stop circling the same patterns and start building unstoppable momentum. Ready to take the next step? Schedule your momentum call now at ignitingmomentum.co. That's ignitingmomentum.co. You'll find all the details there. Jovan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Marlon. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing all right. Life has been lifing, but we're making
I know.
it.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I always like to start off with asking a question that can kind of open the door to you sharing your
hmm
story. So the first question I have for you is, um, can you share a little bit about who you are today? What was the journey that brought you
Mhm.
here, and where do you hope to be in the future? And feel free to take it in any direction that feels meaningful to you.
Thank you. I love that question. It's kind of like three in one, so I'm going to do my best to answer. So who am I? So I usually start off with saying that I'm human. And I think, especially for Black women, we are dehumanized a whole lot. And
Yeah.
so I make sure that I put that first, usually in my bio on social media. But I would like to add to that saying that I am a spiritual being having a human experience.
Yes, I love that phrase.
And, I've been catapulted into a spiritual awakening, just given the recent events, and I'm sure we're going to get into those things. But um, I am a human. I am a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I'm a creator. I'm a therapist, and so much more. Okay. Um,
Mhm.
how did I get here? Um, being a little girl brought up in St. Louis, Missouri. I would say that. That is my start. That is what I make reference to. And that is what made me. And so I was, born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and that was my upbringing from 0 to 18. And then I would say, like, I came into my adulthood in North Carolina, where I attended North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, which is a
Mhm.
HBCU located in Greensboro, North Carolina. I would say its main claim to fame is the A&T 4 that were amongst the first that were sitting at lunch counters, and they sat at the Woolworth Diner and
Mhm.
caused a domino effect around the country and eventually around the world to fight racism and desegregation. And so that's a history that I'm very proud of and something to.
One of my biggest regrets is not attending an HBCU.
Oh
Like,
man, yeah.
yeah, I'm
What
sorry.
school did you go to?
I went to a school in Boston called Suffolk University.
Okay, I think I've heard of Suffolk before. Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of famous for their law school.
Okay, okay. Cool. Yeah. I'm a double Aggie. So that means that I went to A&T twice. So I got my bachelor's in psychology from there. And then I also returned and got my master's in clinical mental health counseling from A&T as well. And what's
Great,
the part of the
great.
question? I feel like I'm missing a part of the question.
No, so the next part of it what is the journey that brought you to where you are right now,
Oh, yeah.
and then where do you want to go from here?
Yes, yes. So that, I guess, is the start and some of the journey. And just, I would say, um, just fumbling along in this human experience. And can we cuss on here?
Yeah. Oh, please do. Please do.
So my soon-to-be ex-wife would often say like that my motto is "fuck it, I'll try it." Okay. And
Mhm.
that's how I have lived my life, is that I'm a person that's going to have experiences. And once I realize that an experience isn't for me, I drop it, you know? And so if it's something that I'm interested in, I'm going to go after it. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I will chop it up to character development.
Let me interrupt right here because one trait that I've noticed across the people, for myself and across the people that I'm having conversations with,
Hmm.
is a unique amount of courage.
Mm,
Um, where did your courage come from?
mm. I wish I could take full credit for my courage, but I would say that I come from a strong line of matriarchs, that I'm like a fourth generation single mom. And we were all married at some point, but all found
Right.
ourselves as single moms as well. And so I think that takes courage to decide to have children and to do it alone at some point,
Mm,
whatever point that gets you there, being able to do that, right? So I grew up around people that grew up impoverished and that made a way out of no way. I'm a direct descendant of someone that came from the Great Migration, right? So my great grandmother moved to St. Louis in the early 1900s from Tennessee. I still have no idea what exactly happened that drove that move, but I'm still learning my family lineage and really immersing myself in that process. And my grandmother, she had severe mental illness. She was said to have schizophrenia. I kind of think that she did not have schizophrenia, and more so was neurodivergent, and then also had a
mm,
great deal of trauma that led to some psychosis and some other things that were actually happening. But to be able to see her live her life in that way, and to have so many struggles, was a very clear indication for me early on as a child to say, no, I'm not going to give up on my life. I'm not going to stop fighting, and that I'm going to continue as much as possible. And I'm not going to let anybody drive me crazy.
that's fascinating.
Yeah. And my mother's a soldier. She's a survivor. As much as I would like for her to continue her work, I had to take up the baton from her, like finish what she did not finish. And so
Mhm,
I think that the women in my family did some amazing things in their lives, but they did not get to rest. They did not get to enjoy their lives fully. They still experience, some forms of joy, but um, they didn't have the privilege that I have. And so I've taken
yeah.
full advantage of my privilege of being college educated, of being, being able to move when I want to move, having my own money and not necessarily having to depend on anyone else to have a living.
Mhm,
Those things are what, like brick by brick, brought me to this point.
yeah. I think it's worth saying what you just
Mhm.
said about um, your mother bringing the baton up to a point and you having to take it over. Um,
Mhm.
one of the things I think about is that it doesn't have to be this or that when it comes to um, either holding your primary caregivers accountable for the harms they did, but also recognize where they came from
Mhm.
before. Um, I had a uh, tumultuous, to say the least, relationship with my dad.
Mhm.
Uh, we're no contact, um,
Same.
but I also yeah, but I also recognize some of the crazy things that happened to him. Like my grandfather, who was super sweet, old,
Mhm.
um, literally built like a cinder block jail cell for my dad.
Mm.
That was like his timeout place, and they would like shove food under the door, and he had like a bucket to
Yikes.
piss and shit in. That's and then and to come, to have the sense to um despite all his failings, in some ways he tried to do the right thing. He never financially abandoned his children.
Mhm.
With his first wife, they were married. They had their son. That relationship didn't work out. He got my mother pregnant. He married her. Had me and my other two brothers. Um, Later on, they divorced like well after I was an adult. Um, but he definitely tried to do the honorable way in that sense,
Mhm.
but so many other failings, so many other hurts inflicted on me that I'll probably never be able to totally get rid of, right? Like some of the biggest things that I feel like celebrating is just noticing the pattern, even though it still comes up for me. Like
Mhm.
the fact that I can just notice it, to me, that's a win.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I can recognize what happened to him, and at the same time realize now it's my turn to take over. And I just thought that was a profound thing that you said.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know that you've been following me on social media. We've been following each other for the past few months and have seen and learned a lot about each other virtually, right?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I can recognize folks' human experience, but also say this caused me harm. Now, when it
Yeah,
comes to my parents, my mother definitely caused a lot less harm than I would say my father did.
same.
And when it comes to my father, I can also recognize, right, even though, yes, he's a narcissist, yes, he has a lot of problematic behaviors, he was probably still better than his dad,
Right.
um, and better than his mom and whatever else, because we know that a lot of folks that, have personality disorders, unfortunately, were at some point victims.
Right.
And so, and that sometimes is hard to grapple with, is like, well, I didn't turn out that way. What the hell? But there is still, excuse me, there is still some level of empathy that exists, but I can have empathy and even a little bit of understanding, but that does not mean
Hmm.
that you deserve a place in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where boundaries come in, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of boundaries, I wonder, do you have uh, the earliest memory about abandoning your boundaries to stay safe or to keep someone happy?
Yeah. I remember being molested as a kid and by family members. Several.
It always is. It always
Yeah,
is.
several family members. And I didn't say anything. I didn't tell. And I think I dissociated and stuffed it to the deep recesses of my mind as much as possible to survive my environments, right? But when I went to
Yeah.
college, I could no longer do that, right? Because I was
Yeah.
out of that environment. So of course, some of those things came flooding, and that was a very difficult time to like grapple with being harmed by your family. And um, I would say that is one of the first times that I abandoned myself. And I even remember being asked as a kid about it. Like my parents asked, like, if there was any type of abuse happening. But how do you expect someone to talk about abuse when your parent is abusive? What's going to happen?
Damn. Yeah.
So
You already don't have a safe space.
yeah. So, and I had a recent conversation with my mother that came to visit, after I blew up my life on social media. But yeah, I was having a conversation with her recently, and I told her, I said, I didn't have any safe spaces as a kid other than my great grandmother's house.
Mm.
That was the one place that I was able to be my full self, my full neurodivergent, bubbly black girl, creative, emotional self, right? And I just published my first podcast episode a couple weeks ago, Boundaries and
Yeah.
Bullshit, about home. What did I call? I called it homegoing or homecoming. I'm sorry, homecoming. Because in my 30s, I find myself returning to that little girl that needed safe spaces, that was
Yeah.
bubbly, that was super creative, and that had to fight her way out of her environment, but also had to survive her environment. And my survival meant
Yeah.
silence. Yeah.
The knowledge of there just not being a safe space for you,
Mm-hmm.
it's insane how much that lives in your body.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you've had this experience that as soon as each place where you felt maybe a little safer and a little safer as you got further away,
Mm-hmm.
um, like an insane amount of fatigue.
So I'm thinking about it now. Um, College, I think just life was too busy to
Yeah.
really fully sit in that. I would say I felt more at peace at school than I did at home. Just the city itself was not like super metropolitan. I grew up in the hood. I grew up like hearing gunshots. I grew up watching people, um, especially in the summertime, it'll be teenage boys lined up on sidewalks, handcuffed by the police for who knows
Mm.
what reasons, right? I grew up with there being a lot of fights in the neighborhood and all kinds of stuff, right? So when I moved to Greensboro, North Carolina, that was the safest I had ever felt. But to answer your question about the fatigue, that is something that I'm currently experiencing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, since deciding to leave my marriage in January, I've been tired, right? Fighting, right? Legal things,
Hmm.
all kinds of things, right? That's just like
Yeah.
really just wears you out. But also since things have lightened up the last like month or so, I've been sleeping a lot.
Yeah.
It's like you can't get
Yeah.
enough sleep. And I don't know what your spiritual beliefs are, but I have been very much on my woo-woo journey. And
Hmm.
and so
Same.
and I've are you familiar with the term like what is it called? The dark night of the soul?
Dark Night of the Soul. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
what I've been experiencing for the last few months. And
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a very difficult I'm still trying to find a way to like verbalize that experience, but it's I've been depressed before, but but
Right.
but
Right.
the dark
It's
night of
just
the
is different.
soul is like a transformative experience, and that's what led me to at the beginning calling or saying that I'm a human being, or I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, because like I said, me deciding to leave my marriage catapulted me into a spiritual awakening where I can no longer close my eyes to bullshit, and
Hmm.
where I had to become the main character of my life. But unfortunately, while you are having this experience, life is still happening around you, right?
It's yep.
I still
Yeah.
have to raise my daughter. I still have to work and do all these other things, but I've been going through it. And I'm like, whoo, Is this what divorce feels like? Is this what this
Yeah.
awakening feels like? Because it's been whooping my ass. Like I'm starting to feel
Yeah.
some levity, but who?
Yeah. I totally relate. What was interesting for me, kind of the same thing like you said. Life was so busy for me. So after I left my parents' house, I had a whole bunch of these odd end jobs. I finally joined the Marine Corps, did that for 8.5 years. Um, and so it was busy, busy, busy.
Mhm.
And then I went straight to college, and again, busy, busy, busy. So even though they were safer environments, you know, I I wasn't avoiding anything, but I didn't have that space to like actively
Yes.
address it. Um, and I was in therapy mostly all of that time too.
Mm.
But it was much more dealing with, um, I guess, my integration into society because I was homeschooled my entire life.
Mm.
Um, so that didn't even come up. When I asked my ex-wife for a divorce, even then, I felt fine and good, because at that time I just figured, um, we're just not good for each other because I can't keep expecting you, um, to show up in our relationship if you've shown me that
Yeah.
you're either don't want to, or it's not possible for what you have to do that,
Mhm.
right? But I didn't think anything like, you're a narcissist, anything like that. Um, it wasn't until a friend of mine texted me and said, "Hey, so and so texted me asking for my help in like making you not talk." She had all the reasons, and that is when I realized what was happening, because
Oh,
from then on, not a single person reached out to me from our friend group, from our social life. Like, she made the rounds, and so even from family members of mine.
mhm.
And so when I realized I truly was, standing alone, that that's when the dark night of the soul started
Okay.
for me. And that it was when, thank God, you know, up until then, I never needed any medical intervention or pharmaceutical intervention. And so I had to, get on Lexapro, Wellbutrin, um, from time to time, propalanol, I can never pronounce that. Um, and that allowed me enough calm to like force my body to shut down.
Mhm.
And which is weird. I'm like such a motivated person. I'm a self-starter. And I would stay hours and hours and hours in bed. Got to pick up my kids. Now I can do that. I can make dinner. We can go to the park. I can do bath time, story time, bedtime, no problem.
Mhm.
As soon as they leave the house,
Back down. Yes, that's been my life for the
back
last
down.
few months. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And it does get better. I'm not completely out of it. I was recently, she's over here sleeping, can't see her. I was recently matched with a companion dog, and you know, the big thing that she does is sit on my chest until I
Mm.
get up and take her
Mm.
out. And she is annoying. She will not like give me peace until I roll out of bed and take her out. And just the 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, slowly started giving me a little bit of relief. But it is the dark night of the soul. Yeah, it is. It is dark, but it's a necessary trial by fire.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely baptism by fire, trial by fire situation. And that's where I've been, where I had to decide, right? Because at the beginning of this, I was still working. I still had
Mm,
clients. I was still
yeah.
showing up for folks that were experiencing domestic violence, and showing
Mm,
up for folks with personality disorders, and showing up for folks that were dealing with other forms of trauma and all of that, and still being a mom and still pushing through. And so I was pushing through like I had been taught to, right? I was pushing through like my
hmm
mama did. I was pushing through like my grandma did. I was pushing through like my great grandma did. And it finally came a time where I was like, I can't.
hmm
Yes, I'm strong. Yes, I am resilient and all of these other things, but I'm like, I don't want to be strong. I need to be able to rest. I need to be able to take care of myself. And that's something
Mm.
I've never been able to do in my entire life.
Yeah.
I've been taking care of folks. I just had a therapy session with my therapist earlier, and I was telling her that lately, with me speaking up and opening my throat chakra, I've been giving people their stuff back.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
It's not mine to
yeah, it's
have.
not mine. It's not mine. So,
Mhm.
mama, if you want to stay with that man, that's your stuff. I'm a hold,
Yeah.
but you're gonna hold my stuff too, because it's not on me to hold it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
give you what
Yeah.
I've been holding, what I've been sitting with, what I've been pushing down, dealing with, and whatever else. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give you your part too, because you enabled the behavior. You
Yeah.
stayed. That's your stuff. Brother, you're a grown man. I helped raise you. Here's your stuff. You got to deal with him. I'm no longer taking up for
Mhm.
you when it comes to him or mama or anybody else. Y'all deal with it. I'm done. I've checked out. I put my cape aside and I said, fuck
Yeah.
everybody. It's about me.
Yeah. It is not hyperbole to talk about how my computer's dying here. Let me plug it in. Um, to talk about how transformative it is to give people their stuff back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I there is something like ridiculously delicious about it. I remember the first time I realized that I was soothing people's anxiety for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have the words at that time to put it that way.
Right.
But that's what I was doing. I was soothing their anxiety, and at the point of at the cost of
Yeah.
me creating more for
To your own
myself.
detriment.
Um, and one of the biggest things that I did was literally um, stop explaining my decisions, um, not answering to questions I don't need an answer to, um, and just being comfortable with silence. And I can't just say that, oh, I became like strong all of a sudden. It was truly starting my business that really gave me those skills, because I had to do sales
Mm-hmm.
calls, and like the number one thing is like, don't feel the silence. So I would play these games with myself to say, if the prospect is silent, how long can I just not say anything until they talk? And so I was practiced at that, and I wasn't practicing it for to use it in my personal life. It just happened to happen.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I was slowly building those skills, not explaining myself to an angry client if they're being irate for an unreasonable thing, to just be professional, but also not be like, oh yes, 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 I'm so sorry, like,
Yeah, not to
you know
placate their
uh
feelings.
not
Mhm.
to placate their feelings. And I just got good at that. And as soon as I started um not managing people's anxieties, it just totally, totally transformed. Um, so I can totally relate to the giving back of what's not yours to have.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you can, because you're the professional, talk a little bit about shame, because I feel that
Mhm.
that's the big thing that people try to put on you. Like, you're supposed to feel shame for whatever reason, and they lash out when you refuse to take the shame that they would feel in that situation.
Yeah.
Um, is there what do how, what are your thoughts on how shame plays a part in I guess our breaking down and then getting rid of it, and how does it play a part in getting us to return back to ourselves?
Yeah. I think when it comes to shame, shame is a mythical thing. I think it's very similar to the concept of hell, right? So hell
Okay.
is a place that, Christians and other Judeo-Christian religions came up with to produce fear, right? Because if you are scared of living your life, then you will stay in this straight line. You will, you will be someone that follows orders. You will be somebody that's easily manipulated. You will be someone that, that does everything that the pastor, your parents, or whoever's in charge tells you to do. But so when you go outside those lines and you are shamed for that, that keeps you in line. So
Yeah.
if you're told all your life, oh, if you're gay, you're going to go to hell, that's going to produce a lot of shame. And that's the hope, is that it'll stop you from being gay. That's the shame. You see what I'm saying? It's used to
Yeah.
to keep you in line. And so once you get over that fear, once I got over the fear of hell when I went to college, and I was like, I don't even believe in this place. Why am I so scared of it? So once I got over that hurdle, oh, you couldn't tell me nothing, because I was going to
Yeah.
experience everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at this point in my life, there's not a lot of things that people can shame me about, because I'm gonna tell it first.
If this podcast speaks to you, if you're on the path of healing, reclaiming your voice, or just trying to piece together who you really are after surviving the unthinkable, I want to invite you into a space where you don't have to do it alone. Join our Facebook group created for survivors, cycle breakers, and people rebuilding themselves from the inside out. In there, we go deeper. Weekly prompts, live streams, raw conversations, and a whole lot of people who just get it. No pretending, no pressure, just truth, growth, and community. Search Rising from the Shadows, The Path to Reclaiming You on Facebook, or hit the link in the show notes to join the community.
I'm gonna tell it, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna say, yeah, I did it, and I learned from it.
Yeah.
And we can keep it moving, and that's it, right? But when you live in shame, people can keep you small. People can keep you in line. People can control you. But if you have no shame, right? And so that's why I started sharing online, where I'm like, this is not my shame to bear.
Yeah.
This ain't mine. So I'm giving it out. I don't give a damn. Judge me. Okay.
I was talking, I had an interview yesterday, and the guy I was talking to made this statement. I was like, wow, yes. He said that most people think that you're living in the same reality that they live in. And so they're like, don't understand when you're not responding to how they would.
Yeah.
I totally see about I'll tell it first. Last summer, I'm active on my Instagram, and I share thoughts from here to there, from here and now again. And there was I came across Alana Mar, the Olympic rugby star.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of her. But she has a very muscular build. I mean, she plays rugby, and she had posted a picture of her like from gym day and her back muscles, and I shared that, and I was like I wish I could have back muscles like this. And then old friend of mine
Oh Lord.
messaged me and had something like sexually derogatory to say about her jaw and mouth and what it could be good for.
Disgusting.
And I said, dude, like, don't be gross. And then he got so like pissed off. He was like, dude, stop being so sensitive. He's a vet too. So like, dude, stop being so sensitive. I'm like, I'm not being sensitive. That's not the way I talk. And this guy went back to 2016 to find a conversation that was had between me and another friend of ours while we were getting ready to golf, where it was like my teasing, and I said that the other guy was going to like suck my dick or whatever because I'm going to beat him at golf.
Oh, okay.
And so he tried to, he's like, is this you? And I'm like, watch me. So I shared that screenshot of him saying that and been like, yeah, I'm not the 2016 Marlon that you see here today. Like that was absolutely inappropriate for me to say. Like, and thank God I grew from that and I'm not
Mhm.
that anymore.
Yes.
Why are you still in that? Right? So him trying to like shame me and to be like shutting up,
Mhm.
and then when I called him out on that, he was like, "Oh, I didn't dig up anything. I was just happening. I just happened to come across it while I was looking for pictures." Um, to give to NASA because I'm gonna start working there soon. And I was like,
Trying to save
and he's like slave face, and he's got 2 daughters, and I'm like, oh,
but
anyway,
yeah, he did that to evade
it's not my
responsibility.
shame to have.
Yeah, he did that to evade responsibility, right? So instead of saying, "You know what, man, you were right. You're right. I messed up." And that's it. It was, "Let me remind you of who you were."
So simple to do, right? And be like, shit, yeah, you're right. Like it's so simple, and it doesn't even take anything away from you. It's not even like shameful. Like it's just like, you know, like you're raised in a patriarchal society. Even if you think you're a good guy, you can't escape from all your
It's the
conditionings. That
water,
shit flares up,
the
right?
water.
You just gotta like notice it and try to God, where are my words today? Try to
Reel it in.
reel it in. Um, so yeah, yeah. I um I talk a lot in my keynote that I give about. I start off saying that there comes a moment in time where, um, people start hearing a voice that is calling them to be and to live more than they are now. And at some point in time, it gets so loud that you can't ignore it.
No.
Did you have a moment like that where you're like, I can't be here anymore. I can't stay in this quote unquote safe environment that's actually, snuffing out my life. I have to do something. It's not even I want to do it. Like I have to do it if I'm going to stay alive. Did you have a moment like that?
I've had several of those moments. It really depends on what period of my life we're talking about, right? So if we're talking, me being in high school, well, let's even say middle school. By middle school, I knew I was going to a HBCU in the South. And I remember, I don't, was it Jet Beauty? Yeah, it was Jet. We had Jet magazines that always came to the house. And
Hmm.
so they always had like the HBCU queens and the Jet Beauty of the week. And I would always like look at the little blurb that says what school that they went to. And a lot of them went to HBCUs. And so I just remember seeing like how beautiful they were. And my mother was like, "Yeah, you're going to go to Spelman, right?" And I was like, I don't know, but um, but yeah, so I knew that education was my way out very early on. And I started doing college scholarships back in like middle school. And then in high school, that's when the hustle really started. Was like, okay, I got to figure out where I'm going to go. I'm not going anywhere near home. I'm going far and I'm going to go there and I'm never going to go back as far as like living there. And so me and my two best friends at that time, we made a pact that we were all coming in together and we were all leaving out together and we all graduated. And I actually graduated a year early and had to move back home
Nice.
when things did not go well. And go well as far as like the economy was absolute shit. And I had to move home for a year, like
When did you graduate?
2011.
Mm.
Yeah. And I had a psych
Yeah.
degree. Okay. So I had applied to Teach for America. I had applied to different clinical psych PhD programs. And so I remember taking it really hard that I should have been excited, right? I gone to the HBCU of my dreams. I met a lot of great people. I graduated with honors. I graduated in 3 years rather than four, but I still had so much shame because I graduated and I didn't have a job. And like when I work with college students specifically, I'm like, look, some stuff is not going to be in your control. You do what you can, but if you do have the opportunity to return home and it's safe, there's no shame in that. But I didn't have anybody that was telling me that there was no shame in that. Right. And I had to kind of learn through experience to like get rid of that shame and guilt and just being really hard on myself with having to figure things out. And so I would say like that was definitely a moment. So graduating from or going to college and recognizing like, okay, I need to figure out my next step. And then also I moved home for a year. And during that time, both of my parents had been laid off because we know the economy
Mm.
was shit.
Yeah.
And they work in the auto industry, and we know what that did during that time.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So very
Yeah.
rough. And my mother didn't work in the auto industry at that time, but my father did. And so the plant had closed in St. Louis, Missouri, and uh, an opportunity came about where they had some plants open in Indiana. And so he, during that time that I was in college, he had moved to Indiana, and my mother and brother stayed back in St. Louis to kind of like maintain normalcy and all of that. And so when I moved home, things were good Monday through Thursday. The house was quiet, peaceful, loving. We were our normal selves. But come Friday, totally different environment. And that put a
Mm.
fire under my ass that said, oh no, I cannot stay here. I gotta go. So that was like another one of
Yeah.
those moments where I was just like, yeah, I can't live here. I have to move back. And it was between getting a master's in teaching and staying in St. Louis or coming back to North Carolina and get my master's in clinical mental health counseling. I chose the latter.
No.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would,
Yeah.
oh,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say this most recent time is is I would say becoming a single parent also was another one of those things where it was just like, fuck it, I'll do it myself. I don't even need this man to make it happen. It would have been great to, parent with somebody else, but you're not about to disrupt what I have going on in my peace. But I would say the
Mhm.
most recent time was over the summer 2024. Just conflict after conflict after conflict. And I'm utilizing my voice. It's not being respected. More disrespectful things are happening. And I remember crying in my bathroom mirror and I was like putting lotion on myself and I had a good cry. And I said, Jovan, you told yourself if anybody makes you feel this way, you will leave. And I wrote it down to hold myself accountable. I put it in my notes app. And I said, Jovan, if this shit is not better by February 2025, you need to leave. Shit went down on January 20th, 2025. Almost to the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. Um, it was so your 2024 was my 2023.
Mm.
Um, and um,
I don't know if
you
it's
know,
messing up on
I
your
was
end, but you're breaking
in
up.
therapy at the time. So obviously I'm talking about the same
Marlon, can you hear me?
things with my therapist, and
The sound is
at
messing up.
some point she said, "Look, oh,
Hello? I can hear you a little bit. Should we refresh?
The room may appear. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Huh. Oh.
Better.
Hold on. Can you hear? Let's you start the other way. Am I good? Not yet.
I think you're a little bit on delay.
Let's just wait a little bit. Am I still on delay?
Yes.
Hmm.
I know it's raining here, but I have all of my I have a connection. All of my bars.
No, it was definite. It was definitely me.
Okay.
Let's just hang on a second because I want to make sure.
I can see your mouth moving again. It's just not in sync.
Okay, hold on. Am I still delayed?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's literally on 1%.
Oh, you're
So
back
I think
delayed.
it's just
You're back delayed.
hmm.
Like I can see you moving and
It's
everything, but
yeah.
it's a lag.
Yeah, it's because the browser is using a lot of energy. Let me close some tabs. That might help me and my 14 million tabs. How about now? Am I any better?
Yes,
Okay.
we're back.
Hopefully this works. Okay, good. What were we talking about?
You were about to say something. Oh, about your moment when you figured out that it was time.
Oh yeah. Um my yeah, so I was talking with my therapist and she's just said plain out like, Marlon, you can either have to accept what she's saying to you through her actions, that's all she can do,
Mm.
um or make a decision to get your needs met elsewhere. And because that would just build resentment, and she was totally right. I was resenting that I was using my voice to communicate, using my pen to communicate, and nothing ever made a lasting difference.
Yes.
um, and at all the things that I was accepting, nothing, um, the more I gave, it didn't make it better. The more I acquiesced, it didn't make it better. So uh, she had me, wait, first, I remember saying, like, I was like, Leslie, I just can't imagine myself being with anyone else. And she said, for now. I was like, the fuck?
That's so cool.
I was so mad. I was so mad. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, that's how you feel now.
Mm.
I was like, all right, let's end this session.
It is our job to make people
um,
mad. Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I feel like she was a little light-handed.
Yeah, because I would have said it differently.
She's not my therapist anymore. She was a light-handed in my other conversations with her, so that was kind of a shock that she was like that blunt.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so she had me write down in my journal all the things that I need in a partner,
Mm.
and to ask myself if my
That's
then
great.
partner matched that. I was
Yes.
like, damn.
Yes.
And at the time, I still wasn't ready.
Mm.
Um, I still wasn't ready. I was still trying to figure out, like, how can I make this work? Um, it took really me realizing that I was putting my children essentially in the same position as I had growing up,
Yeah.
even though there are no hands being put on them or anything like that.
Mhm.
But emotionally, I remember coming home from work and I just couldn't, like, play with my kids. Like, anyone who knows me knows that I'm the Energizer Bunny. I love to be silly. I still, I'm turning 38 next week. I still feel like I'm maybe like 24,
Happy early
you know.
birthday.
Um, thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
And so playing with kids, I honestly like it. It's not a chore. And I realized that I wasn't showing up emotionally for my son,
Mhm.
where we were doing things that I loved to do.
Yeah.
Using our imagination and play. I just couldn't. I just couldn't.
'Cause it sucks the life out
Um,
of you. I was the same way with my
it
daughter.
really does.
Passive.
It really does. Um, that's the perfect analogy. It truly, I felt like, there was a dementor on me taking the happiness out my soul, right?
Mhm.
And but I didn't recognize it then. And I remember after I had made the decision to walk away, I was in the downstairs powder room
Mhm.
and I was washing my hands and I just happened to look up at the mirror and it was like the first time I recognized my face in like 7 years.
Mm.
And it's not that I looked at the mirror before and thought, "Oh, I don't know who is in there," but it's like, I guess it was so gradual, I didn't see the progression
It's
of loss
insidious that way.
of self.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And, I saw, like, a twinkle in my eye, and I'm literally standing in the mirror, and I'm like, "Hi. Hi." Like, "Where have you been?" And,
Mhm.
of course, I started crying and everything like that, but,
That
like,
mirror will
it
do it
took
to
that
you
moment.
every
Yeah, you know? Um,
time.
yeah, totally relate on that.
Mm.
I always say that reclaiming power is not just about, taking back control, it's also, um, rediscovering the parts of you that you had lost. I tell a story about blueberry pancakes. I love blueberry pancakes, and it came a point where I realized I hadn't done the things that I've always loved to do in I don't know how many years.
Mhm.
I love going to the movies. Didn't go to the movies.
Yep.
There are different things that I enjoyed, like those just weren't being done. And not that anyone said, don't do this, Marlon, right? Like, no one's saying, like, you can't do this anymore. But it just slowly went away. And so 2024 was really me rediscovering the things that I liked and adding other things to it as well as I discovered myself. Um, what actions did you take to rebuild your sense of self and create a space where you felt safe and grounded?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. I've been doing a lot. I've been doing a lot. Um, so I would say this is something that I started before we decided to divorce. So back in December, she was manipulating our therapist, our couples therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
um, saying that my mental,
No, saying it
yeah,
so.
and she was saying things like that my mental health was declining. I know myself, right? And now I recognize that this happens with a lot of neurodivergent folks, that a lot of us suffer with seasonal affective disorder.
Yep.
And so I know, like, October, when those leaves start falling off the trees, my mood goes, you
Same.
know?
Plus, we're black and we need more of that vitamin
Yeah, yeah,
D.
yeah, definitely. And so I take vitamin D daily. But
Yeah.
yes, so I knew that that time was coming, and so I'm very open, once again, no shame, right? So I'm showing
Mm-hmm.
up in my relationship as myself and saying like, "Hey, I know this is my decline time. Like, this is what's happening." But she was trying to shape it to the therapist, like she just can't take it anymore and she's doing everything and I'm doing nothing, and that I need to take better care of myself. Not that she was draining the life force out of me, but
Mm-hmm.
she knew that high yoga was something that was really important to me. And I had tried out a couple yoga studios during the last couple of years. Um, but one was very white and didn't feel that welcoming. And she had told me about this black owned yoga studio, but it was expensive. But a friend had told me about ClassPass. And ClassPass is an app that you can pay like a monthly subscription and you get access to all different types of experiences, classes, all kinds of stuff.
Mm.
And so the black owned studio that I had tried out, I think back in early 2024 that I had tried it out, um, it was on the app. And so I returned to hot yoga in December and I've been doing it since. Now, due to divorcing and becoming a single mom again, I've had to figure out the times in which that'll be good for me to go because I have to do it around my child's schedule to make sure that she
Yeah.
has care. But when I say that that place has been so important to me. It's a black woman owned company. It's LGBTQ friendly. It's in downtown Greensboro, and it's amazing. It's been a community space for me. Um, and I mean, even after the yoga classes, some of us kind of stay around and talk for a few minutes and talk about like what
Love
we
it.
got out of yoga. And some of us might talk about like what we're going through, right? So there's some women that have talked to me about going through divorce and they're like, you're going to be okay. But yeah, it's rough, and just
Yeah. Yeah.
that serving as an additional community space for me has been amazing. And I've seen my body change. I'm definitely getting stronger. I see my practice getting better. That's been amazing. Um, I usually try to get massages quarterly. I've gotten a couple of massages off of the ClassPass app.
Mm.
I have taken a handgun safety class. I've gone to a break room recently where it was a rage room where I could go and break glass and different
Mm.
old computers and old Wii games and stuff like that, and just get my anger out in a really great and safe manner.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had a lot of anger, and being someone that does not express anger, I've had to learn how to become friends with my anger and to know that it's no shame in me being angry, but then also recognizing that I don't need to be with anybody that's going to take me to that level.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so glad you talked about anger.
Yeah.
My new therapist told me, like, Marlon, you're not angry enough. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
She's like, you're not angry enough. Like, what's happened to you deserves like a huge amount of anger.
Hmm.
Um, I still don't think that um, I've expressed my anger to the level that's appropriate. Simply because I want to make sure I'm positioned to always be with my children.
Yeah, because I ain't go to
Um,
jail for nobody.
you know what I'm saying? You know, so, but that's another. I talk about 5 epiphanies that I had,
Mm,
and the second one is to embrace anger in the place of resentment,
mhm,
because when I started getting angry for the things that were done to me, it just like forced me into that choice. Like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? Are we going to continue to let it, or are we going to let it go? Because resentment, it's just like, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're doing this. Why won't you change? Why won't you change? That clearly wasn't working. It wasn't motivating. It wasn't, there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? No closure or anything like that. I was just like getting ill and ill and ill.
Mm.
If you're listening to this and you've got a story to tell, whether it's your personal story of healing and reclaiming your voice or rising from rock bottom, or you're a professional with powerful insight into trauma, identity, resilience, or transformation, then I want to hear from you. Rising from the Shadows is more than just a podcast. It's a space where truth is honored, power is reclaimed, and stories heal. If you have something to share that could empower others to stop shrinking and start rising, I'd love for you to apply to be a guest on the show. Just head to tellmystory.risingfromtheshadows.com to submit your application. Let's rise together, one voice, one breakthrough, one story at a time. I had the good sense not to do couples therapy. I had already asked in the past and had one session where, I expressed my hurt, and they said, but no, 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 no. And I'm like, I literally just said something and you haven't even addressed it. And then refused to address it. And I think I said that like 4 times. Okay, this is the 3rd time I'm expressing this exact same thing I said the first time. And this is the 4th time. And so after that, I said, I will never go in, do a counseling session with you again until you've been in individual therapy for a significant amount of time. They didn't do it until I decided to walk away. And then all of a sudden it's Marlon standing in the way of our marriage because I won't do couples counseling. But I knew at that time what was being attempted, that she wanted to paint the narrative that we were both harming each other,
Yes, that's what abusers
to
do. They will
share.
say that we're both
Yeah,
abusing each other or I'm being abused
yeah,
too. Yeah, they got it used on me as well.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know how I had the instinct that that wasn't gonna be a good thing. And but yes, I'm so glad. I'm so glad because you know those type of people are good at what they do. They're good at manipulation. You
Magnificent.
you know you s- you sprinkle a lot of truth and just a little bit of falsehood, so it's believable. And it's insane to see it in like real life.
Yeah,
Work. Um, you know, we both have been healing. I was going to say healed from, at least it's still
yeah,
happening.
no,
Healing
it's gonna be a
from.
lifelong.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Healing from narcissistic relationships. I know you also mentioned bipolar, not bipolar, borderline personality.
Mhm.
How did you manage to survive that and get out of that and start healing from all of that?
Yeah. Uh, I will say this. I loved my wife dearly, and I knew that we had very different backgrounds, and I had thrown therapy at it, right? It was like we had
Hmm.
conversations where I'm like, this way of interacting, the stonewalling, the shutting down,
Hmm.
and but she would claim she's not doing it as punishment, but I'm like, not speaking to me for 2 or 3 days, and you're just walking past me in
Yeah,
the
that's
house
wild.
is not emotionally mature behavior. Okay. Um, and so once I caught on to like the ongoing things, um, I would say her behavior was even less to me than like her family that was a narcissistic family. So I had a problematic mother-in-law.
Can you talk about the family, the narcissistic family unit, because everybody, I think most people think like, oh, this person's a narcissist, and don't realize that
It's a
there are
system
communities of narcissists, like, in church, or in church communities, in family
at
units,
work.
um, and how they operate together.
Uh,
I know you're telling your story, but can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, so I will say this. If you grew up in a narcissistic family, especially, you're likely going to end up dating a narcissist.
Mm.
And no one leaves a narcissistic family unscathed.
Yeah.
So there's different family roles. I don't specialize in family therapy. I've done family therapy for folks and things like that in the past, but that was mainly when I worked with children. But from my degree that I got from the School of Dr. Romany, I'm sure
Oh, really? Did you?
many of us are familiar with Dr. Romany.
Everyone
So,
knows her.
um,
Yeah.
so this is what happened. Christmas 2022. Um, we were some months into dating. She was about to move in, all of that. Very excited. Things were going well. The love bombing was still happening. And so I knew that I was getting serious. I had never lived with anyone. And my family came to visit, my mother, father, brother, and my brother's then fiance, and now she's his wife. So they came to visit. I hosted. I was very excited to have them. Um, and my father started his bullshit as soon as he came through the door. He threatened to shoot our dog from the time that he walked in. And I'm like, this is not a good first impression. Like, this is terrible. But I grit and bared it, as much as I could throughout the weekend. And that was not with any back and forth with him and I. And so my wife was able to see the family dynamics. I didn't tell her about him. I was able to
Mm.
see them that weekend and used
I
it
have so many questions.
and used it to her advantage. Used it to her advantage. And so after my family had left, he had done a number of things throughout that weekend. I was extremely triggered for about a week, and she saw me through that. She seemed to be very supportive and empathetic and all of that. I started doing my research on YouTube University.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran across Dr. Romany. I was already familiar with Dr. Romany from watching the Red Table Talk.
Right, with Jada and
Jada,
yeah.
yeah. And I knew that she was Will Smith's psychologist. But yeah, so I started going down the rabbit hole doing my YouTube research, and I was like, oh my God, he's a narcissist. Like, I had thought about all kinds of, because my mind, I just, the way that my mind works, I'm like always like figuring things out, putting pieces together, and that's just like my analytical
Yes,
mind.
yes.
And so I had gone through a few diagnoses over the years, like maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's autism, maybe because it's like you could tell him something and it just goes right over, like you
Mm.
didn't talk about it. And he could do really nice things, but then he could be the biggest asshole you've ever met. And it never
Yeah.
made sense. Like, what is happening? And I watched one video, then one turned to two, and two turned to 20. And after I finished watching videos, after I watched maybe the first video, the next video was about enmeshed families.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the video and I tapped my then wife and was like, that's y'all. You guys are an enmeshed family. And she was receptive to it, and she was like, no, I think you all do something with that. And
Mm.
and then she sent the video to her mom. Her mom responded and said, nope. And that was the end of that discussion. And as time went on, and the more time I got to spend around her family, the more I got to see and witness their family dysfunction. And by the summertime, by summer 2024, I put together that her mom is a covert narcissist. By the end of the summer, I started to question if my ex was a covert narcissist as well. And how can I describe her mom? Her mom love bombed me. So coming in, her mom was, very welcoming to me and my daughter, and she was like grandma of the year, and she would get her gifts and give her kisses and hugs and all of that, and she would just compliment me and buy me gifts randomly. And after a while, like the gifts didn't make sense. So she bought me some glasses. She bought me some glasses that I eventually went on to break when I decided to leave the relationship. But yeah, so she bought me some glasses. But when people buy you something that you wear every day, they can take credit for it.
Oh, yeah.
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 So if somebody compliments you on your glasses and they're nearby, oh yeah, I got them for her. Oh yeah, you like those? I got them. Yeah. But I have pattern recognition. So
Same.
her deeds were inconsistent, and they were peppered with passive aggressiveness. It was one time where she because my ex, is weird to call her my wife, but yeah, my ex would often like dote on me. So it's not uncommon for folks that have borderline personality disorder to have a favorite person. And I was her favorite person. So she would, dote on me, talk about me on social media all the time. And oh, my wife is the greatest. I'm so in love. I never thought that I would find a love like this. And and she would do that with her mom, right? About me. And she would always be on the phone. Her mom would always constantly call her for any inconvenience. There were Facebook phone calls with the siblings. There was, oh, mom needs this. Mom wants everybody to come to the park. Mom wants everybody at Hobby Lobby. Mom wants mom. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I found myself like having conversations and making diagrams where I'm like, this is us, our family. This is who we need to focus on. The family that we're creating, not everybody else. Us. And that led to more and more conflict with us trying to get her to understand that our family needs to come first. But instead, their family operates based off of her mom being the boss. So her mom decides what everybody's role is, right? So my ex, she's the aunt. She's the aunt of the year. And she aunts so close to the son that she might just take the son away from his mom because his mom had issues. And I could never figure out initially, I'm like, when I met my ex-sister-in-law, I'm like, she seems to be able-bodied. She seems to be able to take care of herself, take care of her kids. I'm not understanding what's the concern that everybody has so much hands in her parenting. Emotional instability, but also the mom makes her think that she can't take care of her own kids. So she can always depend on her. I've seen the mother-in-law call her bitches and all kinds of stuff randomly. And I was like, oh, this is how we're operating. Because when stuff started happening, it was all a fairy tale. It's like we're the big happy family. We take a picture every time we see each other so we can post it on social media and look like the big happy family. But behind the scenes, there's lots of drama. There's triangulation, which means that people talk to each other, they talk around each other. But then after a while, I found myself in the triangulation. For example, I attended Thanksgiving. And I made the greens for Thanksgiving, and I took the greens in a stock pot, a large stock pot that my mother had given me. And it was towards the end. We had already been discussing boundaries and couples counseling and all of that, and about like, I'm not staying here all night with your family. You already know how I feel about it. Once 6 o'clock hits, it's time to go. So the time had arrived for us to go. We're packing our to-go plates. And her aunt, who was her mom's twin sister, they're toxic twins. She asked if I was going to take my pot. And so I immediately like thought through all of the scenarios, right? And I thought about how their family, the first year that we were together, they usually, what I noticed is that they leave the food at that house. Nobody took leftovers. They left the food at the house and then everybody returned to the house the next day. I was like,
Oh.
we're not doing that this year. So I had to think through that. And then I'm like, I'm not coming back here. I want my pot. So I just said aloud, no, I want my pot. Do you have something that we can put this in? And the aunt didn't respond. The aunt was like turned around to the cabinet and she didn't say anything. Okay.
Mhm.
And something happened where, and I repeated myself. And then she like slowly started to get some stuff together. And I noticed, right? Because hindsight is 2020. Because I'm like, okay, she's not responding. I didn't understand what was happening. She was pissed. She was
Mhm.
pissed because how dare I go against the family tradition, the family way of doing things? How dare I tell her, no, I want my pot?
Mm.
And so she didn't respond, whatever else. I said, well, thank you so much for, hosting. We appreciate you. And I gave her a hug and I left. Well, a couple days later was my daughter's birthday party, her 8th birthday party. And they were invited and they came in like the mob or the mafia. Okay. So they came in deep, about 10, 15 of them walking in, and they're stoic and barely saying anything. And they stay next to each other the entire time. We're at a skating rink. And the attention is on my mother-in-law. She's
Mm.
dancing and they're recording. And I'm like, just looking, I'm like hosting and making sure my daughter's having a good time. And I'm like, okay, the attention does not seem to be on my daughter or the
Mm.
kids. So I peeped that, and it was a coldness that was there that I felt at a distance with my ex at that time. And I remember expressing that, and then she turned it around on me like she can't do anything right and she's not doing enough, and how she did all these things at the birthday party and it's just not enough for me. And then in counseling, we ended up having a counseling session that Monday after Thanksgiving and after my daughter's birthday party, which was that Sunday. And so it got turned into this thing in therapy where it was like, it's okay to have your needs met. It's okay to like need your wife a bit more and stuff like that. So still thinking of it innocently, right? That she didn't know what was happening. A few days later, this is the holiday, so we knew we were going to see people more and more often. A few days later, I'm sitting on the couch, she's in the kitchen cleaning, and she says, do you think that you were being a little bit spicy on Thanksgiving? And I'm like, huh? And she says, yeah, do you think you were being a bit spicy on Thanksgiving about the pot thing? And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, no.
Someone was having conversations.
Exactly. So I said, no, I wasn't. I said I was assertive and I gave her an answer. I said, so that to me means somebody was talking shit. Oh,
Mhm.
nobody was talking shit. Nobody was talking shit. Yes, they were. Because obviously it was brought to you. So that means that your aunt went to your mom and your mom went to you. And now you're addressing it with me. She was like, no, I just thought about it because she did give me a look when I said it. But I'm like, what the fuck is the problem? So it was a thing
Mhm.
where in narcissistic families, if me, a person that has an opinion that operates as an individual that is comfortable in who they are, speaks up, that disrupts their
Yeah.
system. They have a system of
Yes.
silence. They have a system of letting them
Ah,
do whatever they
yeah.
want to do. And that is an example of what that looks like in real time. So I got put on ice because I said no about taking my pot.
I'm like feverishly writing things down because you gave me a whole lot of realizations when you said that your ex was able to see your family dynamic and essentially use it to her advantage, i.e., I know what I can get away with.
Hmm.
Um, I never thought about that, but my dad is a malignant narcissist, and my mom is like a vulnerable narcissist, and and I'm realizing now the times that we spent together with my ex and my family. Um,
They're watching.
it would take me like they're watching, and it would take me 3 days to like get over one to get over the visits with my family. Like
Yes.
I'd be like catatonic for 3 days, get my energy back. Um, and at that time, the only reason why I was in contact with them is because I wanted a family,
Yeah.
right? Like I like,
You don't want
um,
abandonment. You don't want to do it alone. Yeah. It
yeah,
keeps it
and
in the
before
there. Yeah.
exactly, and before I was dating my ex, I wasn't really in contact with my family, but she comes from like a big close knit family,
Mm,
and always talked about how like valuable that was in her upbringing, and I'm like, I agree, and so kind of prodded me into rekindling a connection in 2023, yeah, or 2022, might have been 2023. I decided that after realizing that was then when I realized I was um, codependent,
mm,
and that my codependency made me unsafe for my children. Um, I was at a breakfast spot with my ex, and I told her like, "Listen, um, I'm no longer to be in contact with this one family member because he molested me, and I'm no longer going to be in contact with my dad because I told him and he did nothing about it."
yeah.
She was quiet, and I said, "What are you thinking about?" And she said, "I'm trying to figure out how this is going to affect my life."
Mm,
I did not understand I didn't understand what was being said there. We had just come off like one of those, uh, um, long fights, and then we were like making back up. So I didn't want to, stir anything up again.
right.
But that was the response. And you said that another thing you said was that you kind of went down the rabbit hole and, trying to figure out what diagnosis matched. Um, I went down the rabbit hole, but it wasn't a NPD rabbit hole. It started with attachment theory.
Mm,
And so I figured out like, oh, so I'm anxiously attached and she's avoidantly attached or
yeah.
maybe disorganized.
We went there too.
Um, right? And then what I realized later was like, I'm actually not an anxiously attached person if my needs are being met,
Yeah, I am
right? That was like my
sure.
body telling me this is not an emotionally safe environment for you.
Yes.
And so I kept trying to, my codependency kept trying to get that from them. Um, I'm so glad you went down talking about enmeshment and the family systems, because I just assumed like this is a close family. This is a close family.
Mhm, that's what it looks
Um,
like on the outside. Mhm.
right? You mentioned your former mother-in-law being the one that kind of made the rules. In my case, it was the grandmother. The
Mm,
grandmother is, like a social butterfly or whatever, hosts with the mostest. Um, you literally can't get a word in talking with her because she's always has something to say. Um, and she very much laid the roles for people to have.
yeah,
And God forbid you like step out of the box. It was like a huge ordeal. One of the big things started when uh, my son, who is
mm,
insanely intuitive, when he was, probably 2, he didn't want to hug her. He didn't want to hug her. He liked her husband. He didn't want to hug her. And it was a big thing that we weren't forcing him to hug her, right?
mhm.
And this is the point that I thought was really that reminded me of this when you said that your ex-wife was very much like on your side, and you guys had seen that video. She sent it to her mom, etc. Um, that was my experience too, right? like in a way she could say like these are the issues with my family, yada yada yada. Uh, but this and they need therapy, but wouldn't do it themselves, right? So that was the same thing in the what did you call it? You called it the system of silence. That was the big one, and the triangulation. No one talked to anyone directly, and
Mhm.
it just drove me crazy. Like, um, my former brother-in-law, uh, when his wife came into the picture, everyone had a problem with her. And I don't have an issue with everyone having a problem with her, because she would say and do things that were off-putting, but not like meanly.
Yeah.
It was just like I think she had a lot more sense of self than anybody else was used to, and she voiced her opinions. Were her opinions annoying sometimes? Absolutely. Sometimes they were very like inward seeking, but I honestly don't think it was intentional. But everyone had a problem and would talk about her. And I remember saying like, look, at least she's honest with her wants. If so and so says like if you ask her to do something or go with you, and if she says yes, it's not out of obligation, because if she doesn't want to do something, she won't do it. So this was just like a hush hush
Uh-huh.
thing, right? Everybody doesn't like the wife-in-law, daughter-in-law, um and but nobody would talk about it. And those were the systems of silence that really pervaded. And um I didn't understand how pervasive that
Mhm.
was in that
Oh,
dynamic
yeah, I was enemy number 1 to
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
I was
yeah. As soon as you step out.
And the thing is that, and you don't even have to step outside of it in order to be enemy number 1. She came in and she was enemy number 1. I came in and I was enemy number 1, right?
Mm.
I said no once again, on our
Yep,
path
yep.
to a dinner that we were invited to, and it was immediately said around the family that I own my ex, that I run her. That was the family gossip that made it around, is that I run her because I said no, we won't be able to make it to Sunday dinner. And that was the
Mm.
thing too about enmeshed families. You can't be at one event without another event being planned, because they always have to be in each other's business. There's no boundaries that
Yeah,
exist. There's no
none.
roles. I mean, everybody has a role, but then it's like the mom could be the child, the mom could be the mom could be the grandma, the mom, the child could
Yeah,
be the parent,
yeah,
just
yeah,
no,
yeah. Oh.
there's no clear boundaries about who does what. But
Mm.
there were clear boundaries as far as who held the power and who didn't, and who was the
Yes.
favorite, and I
Yeah.
married the favorite. So it
You
was
know
very
what? I think I
similar.
did
Yeah,
too.
so it was very similar to
I think
being
I did
married
too.
to a mama's boy, but I was just married to a
Mhm.
woman, so it was the mama's girl. So it was the 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 favorite child is who the narcissistic parent treats like a spouse versus a child.
Ah, oh my God, we could go forever talking about this. Like you're bringing so much to
Yeah.
front of mind for me. I'm like, oh, that's what that
Oh
is.
yeah, I've
That's what
had
that
nothing
is.
but time to think and process, and believe me, I've been like a mad scientist throughout my marriage life. And let me tell you about this, and let me tell you about that. It
Yeah.
was just like, and I had pushed mids for her. I had pushed individual therapy. I had pushed couples therapy, and none of that was it. It just was not going to work. You cannot save somebody that does not want to be saved. You can't
Yes.
do the healing work for someone that is not really or willing to do their own healing. So she faked her healing to get with me,
Yeah. Oh.
because she knew that that was going to be a requirement in order to get with me, because she saw that I had
Mm.
boundaries with my family. She saw that I would go toe to toe with my father or whoever else that would disrespect her or anybody else around me, because that's how I roll. And I didn't get that
Mm.
same protection with my ex-in-laws. Okay. I do have to go though, because I do need to pack and
I know. I know. I know.
But this has
Yeah,
been
this
amazing.
could go
I
on
hope to
forever,
come
but
back at some point. Yeah.
absolutely, love this. I think all of our listeners are going to walk away with so much insight.
Yeah.
Um, where can people connect with you, hear your thoughts? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, and also on YouTube at Boundaries and Bullshit. And that is BoundariesandBullshxt. And all of those platforms have the same at.
Awesome. And I'll actually post it in the podcast description
Yes,
too for
please.
people. Will do. Thank you so much. It was really great talking to you. Your healing, my healing, all of our collective healing is what the world needs,
Yes.
and I believe we'll heal the world little by little. So I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable with your story, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Marlon, and I appreciate your platform because it's helped me be more brave about my story during these last few months. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. If you're an event organizer, HR leader, or educator looking to bring a powerful voice to your stage, someone who speaks truth, ignites momentum, and empowers your audience to rise above what's held them back, then I want to talk to you. My keynote, Rising from the Shadows, is more than a talk. It's a transformative experience that shows people how to stop shrinking, start healing, and stand fully in their story. I've lived it, I teach it, I walk people through it. So if you're building a lineup of speakers who don't just talk but move people, head over to marlonwesh.com to create something unforgettable for your audience.